Hi friends, this is Amy Frillici with the Gathering Inkspiration Stamp Studio, and today I have a beautiful, can you see this? I'm going to try to get up close so you can see kind of the detail on this card. It's just a gorgeous sympathy card for you today. I'm going to show you the stamp sets that we're using and then the embossing folder and the designer series paper. So I'm going to show you those first and then we'll go ahead and get started making the card. But I love this stamp set, so I'm going to show you that first. I'm going to actually scoot these guys out of the way. And we are actually working with our annual catalog that tons of things are retiring. This catalog is good through May 31, 2017, which is quickly approaching. And actually, let me see, I'm trying to flip. Yes, this stamp set, which is, it's called the Penned and Painted stamp set. Can you see that? So I've gone through and highlighted everything that's retiring in my catalog. So unfortunately, this is one of those stamp sets that is retiring. And actually, I haven't even used, I just to show you that. Can you see that cute little ladybug stamp there? I've got to find a time to use that. Maybe, well, not on this card today because I don't have another clear block here, but I might add it in after the fact, maybe put him on the envelope or something. But what I love about this stamp set is that it's kind of got kind of like a watercolor effect when you do the stamping. They call it a two-step stamping. So for example, maybe in this case, we're using this stamp right here. So we'll stamp this first in a basic black ink, and then this is kind of a lighter watercolor wash that will actually ink up our stamp and stamp it off to get some of the ink off and then stamp it on our paper. And then this one will kind of give some of the extra detail inside of the flower. But you'll understand that a little bit more when we actually do our stamping. But I just love this stamp set and I'm so sad that it's retiring. Stampin' Up! Does guarantee that their stamp sets will be available through May 22. So you do have a little while longer to for sure be able to get the stamp set. After that, it will be available if supplies are still available through May 31. And then after that, you won't be able to get that stamp set any longer. And then in addition, we are using, this is the Better Together stamp set. Can you see that? And I forgot to mention, this is on page 83 of our annual catalog, and I think the other stamp set was on page 143 in the annual catalog. But this is a great, they call it Better Together, I believe, because we're using the With Sympathy on the outside of the card, and then on the inside you could stamp, May your sorrow be cased by wonderful, or eased, excuse me. May your sorrow be eased by wonderful memories. Here's another example. You could stamp on the outside of your card, congratulations on your new arrival. And then on the inside, may your life be filled with fond memories. So I think that's the Better Together part, is there's kind of an inside component to the stamp set and maybe, outside, on the outside of your card and then on the inside of your card. The last thing I want to show you, because I think this is something that I take for granted and I don't know that everyone knows this, but for example, if you can see, we are using the Blooms and Bliss Designer Series paper. I'm going to try to get right there. I think you can read. Can you see where it says 12 sheets, to each of 6 double-sided designs, blah, blah, blah? Below that, in very small print, it tells you the colors of ink or cardstock you could use to make perfect coordinating projects. So for example, this one, the Blooms and Bliss, uses Blushing Bride, Island Indigo, Mint Macaron, Rich Razzleberry, Sahara Sand, Sweet Sugar Plum, and Whisper White. Those are all the colors that are in the Designer Series paper. And I want to show you that on the card itself. So if you recall, I mentioned Sahara Sand is one of the colors in our Designer Series paper, the Blooms and Bliss Designer Series paper, and then this is Rich Razzleberry. So it's in the catalog, and then it's also, if you have your big package of 12 by 12 Designer Series paper, if you flip it over on the back of there, it lists all of the coordinating colors too. So that's just kind of a really good trick to remember. It makes making coordinating projects really simple, because that's all I did was I decided I wanted to use this this designer series paper. So I knew that these two colors would work well, the Sahara Sand and Rich Razzleberry. And then I used those ink colors as well. This is the Rich Razzleberry and Sahara Sand ink. So just a great trick. You may know it already, but just in case, like I said, I take it for granted that people know these things and they don't always know them. So thought I would share that with you today. So we are going to go ahead and get started on our stamping. I'm going to scoot my card over here just so I remember what I'm doing. I like to use, this is the Stampin Pierce Mat. You can see it's been poked a whole bunch of times. To do my stamping with these photopolymer stamps. They are a little bit finicky, so I prefer to have this pad to put my cardstock on that I'm stamping on. And I want to tell you all, this white piece that we're using measures 4 1/4 by 2 inches. Okay, so when you go to make this card, that's what you're going to want to cut your paper to. Okay, so we're going to start with our basic black. This is our Archival permanent black ink. And I'm just going to do a nice easy tap, tap, tap. Get that inked up well. And then we're going to press straight down. And I always like to push. I'm not wiggling or rocking. I'm just pressing straight down and then lift straight up. And then we are going to do the stem. So we're going to ink that guy up and we're going to do him once. And then I'm actually going to do him. And this is going to get on my pad. I probably could have put it underneath, but I didn't, and that's all right. It's not that big of a deal if you get a little bit of ink. The other option would be to just slip this underneath. If I can get my paper, slip that underneath there and then use it as your work surface, so we could certainly do that. So we're going to go ahead and stamp our leaves. Get those guys going right there. I'm going to press that down and lift straight up. So it's already gorgeous, just the way it is. And I will say I kind of went a little wonky there, but that's going to be all right because that other sympathy strip is going to cover that up, so you won't even know that I didn't do that perfectly. Story of my life. Okay, so this is our Rich Razzleberry ink, and now that's going to bug me. I got to pull this back out. There we go. Okay, so this first stamp, trying to make sure I have it lined up. I think it's going to go like that right there. Okay, so I'm going to ink him up fully in my Rich Razzleberry ink, and then, oops, I'm going to kind of stamp him off to get some of the ink off, and then straight down and straight up. So I just have kind of a little bit more shaded look. And then this is our darker. We're going to fill this in. Sometimes that gets ink on it and we don't need ink right there, so I'm going to just do that to make sure I don't get a funny blob where I don't want it. And this one doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, wherever this lands is okay, because everyone might look a little bit different, and I think that's kind of the beauty of that watercolor wash look. Okay, the last part that we need to stamp is kind of the stem. I wanted to just keep these colors really neutral, so I'm using my Sahara Sand. Maybe you'd think you'd probably normally use some kind of a green color, but I wasn't bothered by using that Sahara Sand, so we're going to add that in there. We're going to add this little baby guy right in the middle of our flower. And then, like we did with the flower, the leaves, we ink that up in our Sahara Sand, we stamp it off, and then just kind of press, just add a little bit of color, and then we're going to add a little bit more, ink that up fully, and straight down and straight up. Isn't that cool? It just kind of adds that texture without even having to use your aqua painter. So that's the stamping. I will say, actually, we can do our with sympathy also. I'm going to move that guy out of the way, and I'm going to move him up there. I am going to punch him. This strip of Sahara Sand started out at 3.5 inches by 1 inch, excuse me. And then this is going to slip right inside that 1 inch wide slot. Love this banner triple banner punch, whatever it's called. Just fit that right in there and then press straight down and up, and then it makes a perfect little flagged end there. Now we are going to get our with sympathy. So you can see this is the red rubber stamp from the Better Together stamp set, as opposed to all of these guys that are the photopolymer, the clear all the way through. This is the penned and painted set. So the sentiment is not in that penned and painted set. That's that Better Together set that is not retiring. The flowers that we stamped here, those are the ones that are retiring. I'm going to make sure I've got that going the right direction, and I might have racked a little bit there, so I'm going to make sure I didn't get ink where I don't want it, and then press straight down. And there we go. Looks good. Okay. So I think we've gotten our stamping done. Now I want to do the embossing. This is the Petal Burst Embossing folder. So it just kind of adds some really pretty petal texture, and it's kind of all over. But I think it's still pretty subtle. When you see it on this card, it's just kind of a nice backdrop without being too much. So let's go ahead and grab our Big Shot. Move these guys out of the way. Okay, so we have got the Big Shot right here, and we've got the standard Big Shot platform, one clear plate on the bottom, and then we're going to put our paper inside our embossing folder. And it doesn't matter, actually, that can be crooked and it's not going to be a problem at all, the way that that's set up on there. And then put your other clear piece on top and crank your handle. And let's see what we've got. Let me move the Big Shot out of the way. And the platform, here we go, we'll just get all that right out of the way. And love this moment. Oh, it was a flat, boring piece of paper, and now look at all the texture on that paper. Isn't that cool? Can you all see that? Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so now we are ready to put our card together. Let me move my pieces out of the way. We are going to use some fast fuse. I've really appreciated using, now that I finally know how to use my fast fuse. Press down firmly, make sure you get that flick of the wrist. If it's not sticky here, use your finger and advance it forward. It might be kind of stuck on here, so you might have to clean it off up here or down here. Don't just press and try to make it work, because that's what I did for a while, and you basically break it every time you do that. Okay, so that one looks good. I think it's a pretty new one. So we are going to add this to our card, our embossed, our flower petal embossed piece. So pretty. All right, let me make sure, because fast fuse, there's no forgiveness. Once you push down on it and kind of rub and get it into place, that's it. Okay, and then this was our little piece of the Blooms and Bliss Designer Series paper, and then that's the other side of the paper. Oh, shoot, I should have mentioned, let's see if we can measure. This Rich Razzleberry piece is 4 3/4 by 3 1/4, and then this Designer Series paper is 3 1/2 by 2 1/4. So those are the measurements for all these pieces of paper, so you can make this card as well. And I used fast fuse again because of all the texture. When this lays down on here, I think it helps hold it in place a little bit better to use the fast fuse. I think in another video I did the other day, I called it the Big Shot. I was using my fast fuse, and I listened to it later. I'm like, oh well, you all get the idea, right? Okay, so I'm just kind of rubbing that around. And then again, because I'm going to add this right to some of that embossed. Whoa, did not flick my wrist enough. I have to be careful with that. I'm going to add this guy. Where do I like him? Right about there. Looks good. And you know, every card can be a little bit different, and that's okay. And you can see that dried very quickly, so I don't have a problem kind of rubbing my finger all around there. I'm not smearing that ink at all. And then this one I kind of wanted to pop up a little bit, so we're going to use our dimensionals. Put those on the back, and then just peel off the back of our dimensionals. And see how I'm going to cover that right up, so you don't even know that it's not lined up quite right. Put that down right there. And then I've already, back to the card base. I didn't mention that. I always love to mention that. So this was a piece of Sahara Sand cardstock that started out at, let me get it lined up, so 8 1/2 by this way, or I'm sorry, 11 inches this way and 8.5 inches this way. I got a little tickle in my throat. So then I cut it in half along the 11 inch at 5.5, and then we scored it in half along the 8.5 at 4.25 inches. So it makes that nice crisp fold on our card every single time. So how about that? Isn't that fabulous? I think it's a gorgeous sympathy card. I think it would be lovely, you know, to send to anyone that is going through a hard time. This would be a beautiful card to send to them to hopefully brighten their spirits just a little bit during probably a difficult time. So let's see. Make sure you check out my blog at gatheringinkspiration.com. I will have a blog post on this card on my blog. And then as well, if you would like to purchase the products used to make this card, like I said, the Pendant Painted Stamp Set will be retiring very, very soon. So get that while you still can. Also, this the Designer Series paper. I'm drawing a blank now, but I think I've said it a bunch of times, and it will be on the YouTube video. In the details below the video, I'll list all the products that we use to make this card. Blooms and Bliss Designer Series paper, that's what it is. That paper is retiring as well. So make sure you shop online anytime at my website, which is amysuzanne with a z.stampinup.net. When you spend over $50, if you grab the host code that is on my blog, when you shop on my website, then I send you a free goodie in the mail along with your thank you card. So make sure to do that. I think that's it for today. So hopefully you enjoyed this card and you were inspired today, and hopefully you'll be out making some projects of your own very soon. Thanks so much for stopping by. Bye-bye.